Hey, all right. So, hey, it's Mr. Robinson here. This is the first day of class of instruction. All right. So I know we're excited. I would be. I don't got the mask on. All right. So you guys can see my mustache. No, I don't have the mask on because there's nobody in my classroom because I'm teaching virtually. All right. But you guys are lucky here because you got me for it. Hopefully we learned some stuff. This is America 2. All right, so it means you already had America 1. America 2, now you get a little bit more knowledge. Go ahead and start. I'm just going to dive into it. All right, so first is the first unit here is the Western Frontier. All right, so that's what we're going to be exploring. And some students think, well, cowboys, Indians, stuff like that. But there's more to it than that. All right, and hopefully we'll learn some. The way class is going to work is basically every day I'll be putting one of these videos up for you, and then there will be an assignment in within instructions within the video. But there'll be an assignment accompanied with the video. All right, every day. That's how it's going to work. Okay, so I have a phrase in my classroom called "It's a work day." All right, so I know it's virtual learning, but guess what? It's work. Time to work. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the Great Plains. Okay, we're talking about the area of the country we're talking about here is the Midwest. All right. You're looking at Nebraska, the Dakotas, Montana, which is more west, uh, Kansas, Oklahoma, all this area. All right. Specifically, we're going to go ahead and start talking about Native Americans or Indians. Now, what the federal government did to the Native Americans is really it's a very bad thing that they did. Okay, the federal government did. So, if you remember from American History 1, which I also teach very well, I might add, but if you remember, some of y'all had me for American History 1, so guess what? Boom, you get me again, you're welcome. But so, listen, American History 1, what the federal government did to the Native Americans was they went and they took the Native Americans' land in the Southeast, in Georgia, parts of North Carolina, and other places, and they moved the Native Americans to reservations in the Midwest, specifically Oklahoma, but in other places as well. So now, the time period we're looking at is right after the Civil War. So now the Civil War's occurred, Civil War's over, all right. The federal government refocuses attention to those lands where they moved the Native Americans out to the Midwest or to the West. So, um, some things about Native Americans here. So now they're on the land in the Midwest, but they're a nomadic lifestyle. That's what they lived. All right, nomadic meaning they're always in transit, always moving. Okay, they didn't believe in ownership of land. All right, that's important, the way they viewed land. Federal government, on the other hand, believes the exact opposite. Land is owned. All right, someone owns the land. Native Americans didn't really believe that. The Native Americans also depended upon the horse, all right, because they're always in transit, being nomadic. They're always moving, and then they had a huge importance on the buffalo. Now, what they depend on the buffalo for? We're going to get into this a lot more later, but things such as, well, obviously food, okay, clothing, shelter. They also the buffalo also had a spiritual importance for them as well. Communal living. That's what I go back to. That they lived as a community, and they didn't believe in that land could be owned. It was owned by a commune of people, right? Not by one particular person necessarily. And so the bottom there, that is just some of the names of the various factions or tribes, as they're called, of some of those Native Americans: the Sioux, the Lakota, Cheyenne, Apache, Nez Perce, Blackfeet. All right, that was some of the different factions of them. All right, so Plains Indians, this is important. This is where we're starting at, right after the Civil War. Now, why was America interested in this land in the West? Okay, there are several reasons. A big one here, all right, is what is land? Land is what? Money. Everybody's always interested in money. There was a gold rush in California. Later, we're going to look at there was gold discovered on Native American land in the Black Hills. All right. So anytime gold's discovered, guess what? People want that because gold is money. Homestead Act, something we're going to get into maybe not tomorrow, but the next day. Homestead Act was essentially free land given to people who would settle the West. So now, free land, well, yeah, I want some free land. Anything that's free, people want some of it. Okay, trust me. Not necessarily anything. I mean, um, some things are bad, but I'm telling you what, if someone's giving out free ice cream over here today, guess what? Half the school, maybe more than half the school, would be over there getting some. All right, if it's free, people want that. Government's building a transcontinental railroad, meaning all the way across the continent or country in this case. All right, so they're building all this. Now we want to explore this land that's untapped resources. The buffalo herds, remember the Native Americans depended on them, okay? But really, there's three at the top are the big ones as far as the gold rush, okay? Homestead Act, another reason people are moving out there, and then the building of the Transcontinental Railroad. So these are things that were done to Native Americans, already mentioned. The government made treaties with the Native Americans, okay, but then the treaties are broken. If you look at that picture there, all right, on the slide, what is a Native American, what is he looking like? It looks kind of scared, all right. Personally, I don't know what that's like being scared, but this guy looks scared, okay. Maybe not scared, but he's very suspicious of the federal government here. That's the federal government because he's got the little top hat on, Uncle Sam, and he's all fat and happy there, okay, because he's rich. All right. He's got a cigar, he's got all these bags of money and everything. The Native American doesn't really have much, and the federal government guy, he's kind of running away like he's taking this stuff from the Native American. Native Americans are forced on the reservations. The government promised to pay them and deliver supplies, but they never did. All right, so this stuff is, hey, I promise you this, but I'm not gonna give it to you. All right. Now that's I'll tell you that's not a good way to go for. It's not a good way to do things in life. Trust me. All right, when it comes to your job, relationships, anything, if you promise to do something, you need to do it. All right. The government doing this, it's really bad. An atrocity for the Native Americans. So here's the government. This is where some of the kind of battles start to happen. There's a massacre at Sand Creek. All right, the government basically massacres these Native Americans. More battles as Fetterman's Massacre. I'm not going to get into these specifically, but I'm just showing you that there was conflicts brewing here, going on in the 1864-66 period. Now remember, this is right at the close of the Civil War, which ends in 1865. Okay, so we're going to look at right after the Civil War, and then in the 1870s, there's a much these are kind of like skirmishes or instances. There's a much larger conflict that comes along with the Native Americans. Now, here, the Fetterman's Massacre, where the Native Americans inflicted death upon the federal government, you have two guys that are important. One, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. All right, I'll get to them later. They play a pretty big part. Well, actually, we'll get to it right here. So, the government. The gold is discovered in the Black Hills, which is home of the Native Americans in the Dakotas. So, hey, there's gold out there. The federal government wants it. Okay, so we're going to send one of our best generals out there to get it. They send this guy in the picture, George Armstrong Custer. Okay, Civil War hero, but he's a very kind of vain person. When you think of him, think of one of the Kardashians. Right? How about that? So he's kind of like he's into himself. He's trying to become famous. He had maybe even aspirations of running for president at some point. So he's going to go out there with the mindset of, I'm going to crush the Native Americans. All right, I'm going to crush them, get the gold, come back, enhance my celebrity. Remember, he's already kind of a celebrity from fame in the Civil War. So he goes to, where does he go? He goes to this place called Little Bighorn. All right, takes on the Native Americans, led by those two I mentioned before, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. George Custer, in this case, his army, okay, totally massacred, totally slaughtered, okay. He loses. I don't know what that's like, all right, because I'm not into losing. All right, I'm into winning. In this class, that's what we're going to do every day. We're going to win, all right. But he loses to Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, all right. Everybody, his whole army, no survivors. They're all totally massacred. So this is kind of a big deal. Now, I'm going to get to this here in a second. Well, actually, I'm going to get to it right now. This is a picture of the same person, all right. But the idea is what the government, in a sense, was trying to do was this policy of assimilation. All right. You need to know this word, assimilation, which means basically change the values, behavior, dress, lifestyle of Native Americans into a more anglicized or English, I guess, lifestyle. So you look at him on the left there. All right, how is he dressed? Well, long hair. Okay, native dress, jewelry, earrings. Okay, that's um, that's how he's dressed on the left. That's how he's pictured. Now on the right, this is the same guy after he's been assimilated into American. Remember, American, okay, cultural values, which is anglicized values, all right. He is dressed different, his hair's cut different, all of that, all right. So with assimilation comes, think of it like this. Most Native Americans is their the religion they practice, and most of them practice Christianity. No. What about the language? Most of them speak English? No. Okay. Their beliefs. Remember, I mentioned they didn't believe in that land could be owned. All right. All of these things the government is trying to change. And hopefully the idea is to make them, and notice I'm put this in quotation marks, American, because it's American to do all those things. Which if you remember, America is considered a melting pot. All right, but this is a policy of no, you're going to conform to our values. All right, so again, it's kind of harsh, very harsh treatment they did to the Native Americans in this sense. Assimilation, that's the policy. So there it is, assimilation. Now, some Native Americans actually said, like the guy in the picture is like, all right, we need to do this. A lot totally resented that, and that's where we get a lot of these battles taking place. So here's another act you need to know, something called the Dawes Act. All right, an attempt again to assimilate Native Americans. We're going to give the federal government, being we at this point, the federal government's thinking we're going to give Native Americans 160 acres of land to each family. But remember, the Native Americans didn't believe you could own land. Okay? So we're going to give the Native Americans land to farm in an attempt to assimilate them. All right? In an attempt to make them settle and farm the land. That's what the Dawes Act did. There'll be a Dawes Act assignment probably tomorrow. So there's another picture of assimilation. Now, eventually, what happens with the Native Americans? Okay, so one, the federal government's policy of destroying the buffalo. Native Americans, they depended on the buffalo for food, shelter, clothing. There were other things as well. They used them to make weapons. All right, they essentially followed the buffalo wherever buffalo went. But the federal government is trying to kill off the buffalo. I'll tell you like this. I had a student a couple years ago. I asked in my class, and I've had buffalo to eat. I lived in California for a while. I was in the Marine Corps, and we used to see buffalo out there. everywhere. But one of my buddies, he was from Montana, he killed a buffalo. I guess they were legal to hunt there, because and he brought some buffalo meat back and we ate it, and I mean, it was pretty good. But I asked my students a couple years ago. I said, "Hey, has anybody in here ever ate buffalo?" And one of my students, she said, "Yeah, she ate buffalo." I said, "Where'd you eat it at?" She said she ate at Buffalo Wild Wings. And I'm thinking, okay. She said she ate a wing from Buffalo Wild Wings. All right, well, that's not buffalo. Um, Buffaloes don't have wings, but they do. You can't eat them, and it is good. Um, and they're served in certain spots. So the Native Americans, at this point, the buffalo become almost totally extinct because of federal government's policy of destroying the buffalo. Another part of the end of the lifestyle is trying to educate or teach Native Americans to be more like whites or more anglicized, more American in that sense. So the last thing I think we'll get to here. Now I typically show a movie to go along with this unit. It's called "Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee," but you get a chance, check it out. It's a good movie, but we're not gonna get a chance, or you're not gonna get a chance to view it in person here. So into the Indian lifestyle, it comes along with the very final thing here is there was a massacre at Wounded Knee. Massacre of basically this whole Sioux tribe at Wounded Knee, and that pretty much stopped the end of the Plains Wars. America, once these Sioux were massacred at Wounded Knee, the federal government said, "All right, well that's it. We don't need. There's no more fighting to be done." And a lot of the Native Americans said, "Well, they agreed. They said, there's no sense in to keep on fighting the federal government." So basically, when it comes to what you need to know is a lot of the things that were done here to the Native Americans, obviously very bad. I mean, it's almost, some would say it could be a policy of genocide. Okay, I wouldn't go that far, but certainly a policy of conquest by the federal government. Very bad. All right, certainly they were treated unfairly, and there are things that go along with that. Okay, racism's one of them. Prejudice, all these things go along into that. So please, if you have any questions about the assignment, I'll put the instructions for the assignment. The assignment's on Canvas here. Uh, I'll put the instructions when I send out this video, um, and I'll put it's right there on Canvas. So if you have any questions, just email me. All right. And hey, I'm ready to get started with the year. It not, I mean, probably won't be as fun as if you were in classroom with me in person. This is as close as we can get, so we'll see how it goes.